private Caribbean island he owns, one that some have dubbed the Island of Sin.
For years, much of the evidence gathered by investigators, interviews, emails, logs, and more, was sealed under court orders. Victims argued this secrecy.
For years, in August 2019, the FBI ripped through the veil of secrecy when agents descended upon the island. What they uncovered seemed far more disturbing than even the most stubborn rumors had ever suggested. Filings filed by the victims' attorneys repeatedly identified Little St. James as the primary location where many of the crimes took place. The secret was that this was no idyllic paradise. Inside the island unfolded some of the most shocking crimes of the 21st century. Even major news outlets published photo spreads and opinion pieces focusing on the island's strange architecture and its enigmatic owner. But while all the attention remained fixed firmly on the surface elements, the real story was slowly sinking deeper underground. The entire world became obsessed with the colorful dome on the island. Nobody was asking the harder questions about what existed underground. Nobody was demanding clear evidence or answers about what was truly being concealed in those hidden spaces. People in positions of wealth and influence have always treated privacy as a core part of their lifestyle. The obsession with building a temple-like structure and owning a completely private island represented the ultimate symbol of secrecy and control. Property records plainly show that the island had previously belonged to a venture investor. Yet it remained largely undeveloped for a significant period. As the investigation continued to pull back the layers under official direction, a dramatic transformation came into focus. Millions and millions of dollars were poured into shaping the terrain, importing thousands of mature trees to create an instant tropical environment, and constructing an extensive network of stone-paved walkways and volumes that surrounded the main residence areas. The sprawling colonial-style villa complex was expanded dramatically to include a massive library, multiple reception rooms that opened onto sweeping ocean views, and numerous other luxury amenities throughout the first decade of the 21st century. On the surface, the island operated precisely as its public image suggested. It functioned as a meeting place for intellectual and political elites from around the world. Architectural and lifestyle magazines praised the owner's refined architectural taste in glowing terms. The guests who arrived on the island were not obscure figures who passed through unnoticed. They included Nobel Prize winners, members of influential circles, renowned theoretical minds, and many other highly respected academic and cultural figures. The presence of such highly respected individuals created a powerful air of credibility around the entire island operation. The unconventional logic suggested that a place hosting some of humanity's brightest thinkers, where discussions range from quantum physics to the origins of the universe and the future of biology, must surely be a sanctuary of learning and progress. Security measures and controls were brushed aside as necessary for privacy and protection. The island cultivated the image of a wealthy man creating spaces for serious intellectual conversations. There were no obvious signals visible on the surface at first glance. Private jets often landed at nearby airstrips, and guests were ferried to the island by helicopter or luxury boats following the familiar ritual of an exclusive island experience. The perfection of this carefully maintained image was complete. But observers who examined the island more closely through satellite imagery and distant viewpoints began to notice troubling irregularities that resisted simple explanations. The anomaly did not lie in any lack of comfort or luxury. Instead, the presence of certain structures defied the basic logic of a private retreat. Descriptions of the strange temple-like building only deepened public curiosity. Large double wooden doors stood intricately carved, yet they were blocked by a short barrier through the main doorway, making entry impossible in a conventional sense. Surrounding the building were golden owl statues, symbols connected in mythology to wisdom, but interpreted by others as something far darker. Forensic analysts and specialists examined the scene more carefully. How would an American financier who publicly portrayed himself as highly intellectual construct something like this in the most remote corner of a Caribbean island? Then came the details that changed everything. A gradual underground slope appeared beneath the structure. At the far end sat smooth epoxy walls and a metallic hatch sealed tightly against outside access. GPS coordinates embedded in investigative footage matched perfectly. The tunnel was no longer simply a theory. Local research and emerging evidence suggested the underground structures were very real. The story did not end there. Workers connected to the island were reportedly warned never to discuss certain elements of the property. Department of Justice footage later revealed armed men standing on rocky outcrops, while investigators documented strange underground areas hidden beneath the island. The existence of these structures suggested the island was never intended to function as a simple luxury retreat. Institutional suspicion shifted into direct confrontation during the events of 2019. The FBI and environmental protection teams conducted a full-scale raid on Little St. James. This was no routine construction check. Federal agents entered a domain that had remained closely guarded for decades. Official investigation footage captured FBI agents in tactical gear within moments of arrival. What they discovered hinted at an underground infrastructure far larger than scattered tunnels. Investigators uncovered an industrial-scale desalination plant capable of supplying fresh water for hundreds of people for extended periods without relying on mainland resources. High-capacity generators were buried underground and linked to private telecommunications systems that allowed the island to function independently from local oversight. Flight logs connected to the aircraft, widely known as the Lolita Express, exposed a chilling logistical pattern. Flights linked New York, Palm Beach, and several other locations with striking precision. Records referenced passengers being transferred to helicopters or high-speed boats before arriving on the island. The tunnels were no longer just hidden passages. They became symbols of secrecy, suffering, and the possibility of organized criminal activity operating beneath the surface of luxury. The industrial-grade infrastructure on such a small private island suggested long-term planning, financing, and organization. As investigators and forensic teams moved deeper into the compound, the final veil of mystery began to disappear. Little St. James was no longer viewed as a setting for billionaire excess. Investigators described evidence suggesting a highly organized operation designed around secrecy and control. Inside the main residence and surrounding bungalow structures, rooms were configured in ways investigators considered deeply disturbing. Massage rooms, frequently referenced in testimony from survivors, appeared far different from ordinary therapeutic spaces. Professional massage tables stood beside items investigators considered suspicious. Some rooms reportedly featured locks controlled from the outside, while others appeared deliberately soundproofed. When survivor testimony was compared with the physical layout uncovered during the raids, investigators began seeing patterns that painted a far darker picture. Accounts from survivors described confusing underground layouts connected to the central complex. Shell companies linked to island properties had identities scrubbed from public records. Records connected to the temple structure included references to what was described as a lifeboat bunker. Whether publicly described as a music room, pavilion, or gym, the atmosphere surrounding the structure raised far more questions than answers. The octagonal design of the building, its unusual architecture, and the underground passages beneath it became central points of fascination. Construction materials reportedly arrived from multiple countries, turning the island into a hub of continuous development and coordination. Witness accounts and financial records suggested that an entire workforce, including managers, chefs, and security personnel, operated within a system built around secrecy. What shocked observers most was not only the nature of the allegations, but the level of organization behind them. Financial documents revealed complex systems of payments, shell companies, logistics management, and operational planning. If the story ended with a single individual acting alone, it would still remain horrifying. But the evidence suggested networks of cooperation extending far beyond one person. The underground passages appeared professionally engineered, complete with reinforced concrete walls, ventilation systems, electrical infrastructure, and hidden access points. one passage reportedly connected to an underwater entrance, potentially allowing discreet arrivals and departures away from the island's visible docks. Another tunnel linked directly to the temple-like structure positioned on the hill above the island. Satellite imagery over multiple years revealed how the terrain itself had been reshaped in stages. Massive earth-moving equipment altered the landscape, while vegetation was strategically planted to conceal changes from aerial observation. The stone walkways and platforms surrounding the estate may have functioned as more than decorative architecture. The main residence expanded into a sprawling compound featuring numerous bedrooms, reinforced doors, hidden compartments, and concealed staircases leading downward. Ocean-facing rooms projected openness and luxury, while simultaneously shielding activities from outside view. Intellectual gatherings reportedly took place on the island, but investigators and observers later questioned whether some of these events also served as social cover. The presence of famous academics, scientists, financiers, and political figures created an environment where questioning the host's activities became socially difficult. The island's aura of credibility protected it for years. Security systems extended far beyond fences and guards. Reports describe surveillance cameras, motion sensors, underground server systems, sonar monitoring equipment, and encrypted communication networks. The desalination systems, backup generators, and telecommunications infrastructure allowed the island to operate almost entirely independently. Flight records revealed a constant stream of arrivals. Passengers often transferred from larger aircraft to smaller helicopters or boats before reaching the island itself. Maintenance records detailed repairs to helicopter pads, fueling stations, tunnel lighting, and underground ventilation systems. The so-called massage rooms appeared repeatedly throughout survivor testimony. These spaces were reportedly equipped with adjustable tables, dimmable lighting, locked doors, and soundproofing designed to isolate individuals from the outside world. Survivors later described experiences involving manipulation, coercion, confusion, and psychological control. The temple structure itself remained one of the island's most mysterious features. Official permits described it as a music pavilion complete with plans for a piano and living space. But the finished building appeared radically different from those public descriptions. Its blue and white striped exterior, golden dome, and owl statues created an unsettling atmosphere that fueled years of speculation. The structure reportedly connected directly to underground passages leading beneath the island. Former employees later described a workforce divided between those who actively participated and those who chose to look away. Managers coordinated schedules. Security monitored movement. Staff operated under strict secrecy. Financial records uncovered during investigations showed millions flowing through offshore accounts and shell corporations connected to construction, staffing, transportation, and maintenance. Investigators eventually discovered digital archives containing photographs, videos, electronic records, and hidden surveillance equipment. The scale of the operation suggested something far beyond isolated criminal behavior. The FBI raid in 2019 became a turning point. Agents secured the compound, entered underground areas, breached sealed doors, and documented everything using forensic photography and body cameras. Footage reportedly showed metallic hatches leading into tunnels hidden beneath the island. Investigators later confirmed the existence of underwater access points long discussed in rumors and online speculation. Shipping containers filled with hard drives, paper records, electronic devices, and physical evidence were removed from the property. Over time, Department of Justice releases and court filings revealed additional details. Emails, maintenance logs, witness statements, and travel records painted a picture of a highly organized and carefully protected system. The industrial-scale infrastructure proved this was not a temporary getaway spiraling out of control. It was a purpose-built environment designed around secrecy and sustained operation. Survivors who later spoke publicly described arriving on the island under false pretenses before finding themselves trapped in deeply disturbing circumstances. Early warnings reportedly failed to trigger serious action for years, allowing the operation to continue and expand. As investigators pieced together satellite imagery, leaked documents, witness testimony, and financial records, rumors transformed into documented evidence. The Golden Dome that once appeared merely eccentric became a symbol of deception and unchecked power. The island's hidden infrastructure reflected a much larger system operating beneath the surface. Investigators and observers argued that the architecture itself, locked rooms, soundproof spaces, hidden tunnels, and isolated underground networks, suggested deliberate planning impossible to dismiss. The underwater tunnel added yet another disturbing layer. Accessible only through specialized equipment or discreet marine access, it could allow movement without leaving visible traces on docks or helipads. Investigative footage reportedly showed signs of regular use, including scuff marks, disturbed sediment, and concealed access routes. The second tunnel connected directly to the temple structure through sloping corridors, ending at sealed hatches requiring specific access methods. Inside the branching underground system, investigators reportedly found supplies, emergency equipment, food storage, medical kits, and secured rooms. Construction materials came from international suppliers, mirroring the global network connected to the island itself. The octagonal architecture of the temple created unusual acoustics and disorienting sightlines, adding to the building's unsettling reputation. Witnesses and investigators described an operation functioning with business-like efficiency. Schedules, transportation, staffing, logistics, and secrecy were managed with extreme precision. Costs were tracked meticulously through shell corporations and offshore structures. The infrastructure supporting the island transformed allegations of abuse into evidence of a sustained and organized system. The tunnels facilitated concealment while preserving the illusion of a tropical paradise above ground. In the end, Little St. James became a symbol of what can happen when wealth, secrecy, and unchecked power operate without oversight. The FBI raid shattered the illusion, but investigators continue uncovering new details through documents, testimony, and ongoing legal battles. The underground tunnels now symbolize the hidden machinery that operated beneath the island's luxurious image. The industrial infrastructure proved the operation was deliberate, financed, protected, and maintained over many years. Helicopters arrived carrying guests, while boats transported supplies under the cover of darkness. Staff moved silently through corridors, while victims navigated disorienting spaces hidden behind an image of paradise. Libraries filled with books and ocean view reception rooms masked darker realities unfolding beneath the surface. The temple overlooked the island as its golden dome reflected the Caribbean sunlight, a symbol of secrecy hiding something far more disturbing below. Underground systems continued running constantly. Desalination plants produced water. Generators supplied uninterrupted electricity. Telecommunications systems maintained private connections to the outside world. And beneath it all, the tunnels connected every part of the operation. Digital evidence, physical records, witness testimony, and investigative findings combined to reveal a disturbing picture demanding accountability and transparency. Victims' attorneys fought for years to unseal documents and expose the truth hidden behind layers of secrecy. As more records surfaced, the story became darker and more complex. The underground passages represented far more than physical tunnels. They symbolized an entire parallel system created to operate beyond normal oversight. One passage connected to the ocean for discreet access. Another linked directly to the symbolic temple structure. Together, they formed the hidden infrastructure that allowed the island to function in secrecy for years. Footage showing FBI agents descending into darkness marked the moment when that secrecy finally began to collapse. The island's transformation from undeveloped land into a fortified compound required enormous capital, planning, engineering, and cooperation. Architects, contractors, staff, security personnel, financiers, and visitors all became part of a system that turned isolation into protection. Millions were spent reshaping terrain, expanding villas, importing trees, building underground networks, and creating a self-contained environment where normal rules no longer seemed to apply. What happened on Little St. James became more than a scandal. It became a warning about power, secrecy, corruption, and the human capacity for deliberate harm. The tunnel's infrastructure, survivor testimony, and investigative records ensured the story would not disappear. They demanded answers, accountability, and reforms designed to prevent similar systems from ever emerging again. Behind the image of paradise, an entirely different reality had existed beneath the surface for years. And even now, investigators, journalists, survivors, and attorneys continue uncovering new layers of the truth, document by document, testimony by testimony, ensuring that neither the evidence nor the victims are forgotten.